If you're new, subscribe. You don't want to miss this one. Today's case? Trust me, it gets dark. Let's get into it. Daddy killed Mommy. Mommy is laying in blood right here. This is a story not only about what happened, but how it was allowed to happen. The warning signs were there. My husband is a scary guy, so I just wanted to make sure he was not going to be there. The fear was reported to police over and over. I guess I got a lot. The tension, the anger, the resentment kept building. Again with the restraining order, same as the last restraining order until it escalated to murder. Oh my God, not just the one person, but three. I'm Kristen Thorne, and this is Law and Crime Investigates. Mary Ponzer and Nathan Jingles met during their time in the Army. Mary was in her mid-20s, Nathan in his 30s. They both were captains, and Nathan, in fact, was a decorated one and was one of several soldiers awarded a Meritorious Unit Award for his service in Operation Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan in 2013 and 2014. In 2018, the two get married. At first, they lived together in Germany. In 2020, Mary gives birth to a little girl, and in 2022, they settled down in Tamarack, Florida, which is near Fort Lauderdale. Neighbors say they would try to interact with the couple, but they really kept to themselves, not even returning a friendly wave hello. Neighbors think they're just incredibly private, but unbeknownst to them, terror inside the home is unfolding. Law enforcement was made aware. We can see it in a February 2024 restraining order Mary files against Nathan. 33-year-old Mary writes, quote, "He's saying that he was going to shoot me, and there was nothing I could do about it. I'm afraid Nathan will kill me and my daughter." She tells the court about the 20 or so guns Nathan has in the house, some with silencers. Police seize the weapons. Nathan moves out of the house and into an apartment. A week and a half later, Mary files for divorce and seeks full custody of their daughter. Nathan fires back, saying he should have full custody of their daughter, alleging that Mary has a history of mental illness and exhibits erratic, harmful, and violent behavior. He calls the restraining order against him frivolous. In July 2024, Mary makes a surprising decision. She rescinds the restraining order and negotiates a no harmful contact order with Nathan, meaning he can't stalk, harass, or threaten Mary. But that also means Nathan is allowed to have all his guns back. In September, police records show that Nathan contacted police saying that he was missing 3 silencers and he believed Mary had them. Under the no harmful contact order, Mary is given sole possession of the home, meaning Nathan can't come into and out of the house as he pleases without Mary's permission. Well, that doesn't sit well with Nathan, and he proceeds to fight in court to get access to the house in an effort to retrieve all his stuff. He doesn't though want Mary at the house when that happens. In November 2024, a judge denies that request. As for their daughter, Mary and Nathan are sharing custody at this point. That's also not going smoothly. Mary alleges in court documents that when her daughter returns from spending time with Nathan, her daughter tells her that Nathan keeps saying he's going to kill Mommy. And then in October, Mary is reviewing some of Nathan's financial receipts, and she notices a strange purchase. She Googles the name of the company and discovers that it's a tracking company. Her attorney advises her to check her car for a tracker, and she finds one. She notifies the Broward Sheriff's office repeatedly, informing them that she has a court order that says Nathan isn't supposed to stalk or harass her. Certainly, having a tracker on a car would amount to harassment, but police never take action against Nathan. On December 27th, Mary is away from her house when she gets a notification from a security camera inside her home. She calls police. "Well, hi, we're at your residence. There's nobody here. What was going on? My ex-husband entered the home of like a heated agreement saying that I sold possession and used in the home. And then I had called in like a month and a half ago a report about finding a tracker on my car because I found a GPS tracker on a car that I bought like post-divorce solely my property. That you could pretty well SUS out that he placed it on there because I have a financial transaction from him in his financial disclosure that's from a company called Happen, which is like an asset tracking company. Anyway, I assume that he stole that back, but I don't know. So I don't know. But he knows where it is. And he like went in the home, and I don't know. He's a scary guy. So I just wanted to make sure he was not going to be there while I was waiting there. Do you have a restraining order against him? I did, and then I dropped it for remediated agreement like an idiot. Yeah, I recommend if you're, scared of him to get that restrict. Does he has keys? He has belongings. So it's not like he's breaking into the home and taking things. You know what I mean? I don't know what else to do. If you're scared, I recommend, getting a restraining order once everything's completely done. Like he has all of his want. He's out of the house. The house is yours. He has no mean to come back. He had that restraining order, and don't drop it. Okay, yeah, you gotta make sure you finish that. That way he can't come back here, and you don't have to worry about him at all. Okay, that's right. Do you have any other questions? No. Oh, thank you so much for calling, and we're checking. All righty, no problem. Have a great day. All right, you too, Brenda. When Mary gets home, she finds several upstairs windows open and a ladder behind some bushes. She then reviews the footage from the surveillance camera, and it looks as if Nathan came to the home with a backpack, but left without it. She calls 911. Hi, my name is Mary Jingles. I called on Friday. This is not an emergency, so I want to make sure I'm not taking up the phone time. I think I need to make an informational report. I called on Friday because my ex-husband entered a home that we have a court order saying that I have full use and possession of, and he was wearing a backpack. I just had him, I had security cameras, and you can tell he's carrying something. And I was looking through the footage, and I noticed he left something in the house. I report every time I find something. So, you let me know what I should do. Just don't know what else to do, because I'm just at a loss. And obviously the current court order is not doing anything. All right, I entered a call to dispatch, and we're going to have a deputy respond over to meet with you. Mary finds the backpack in her garage. It's filled with tons of suspicious items like zip ties, garbage bags, gloves, and rags. She calls police again. They respond and take a report, documenting everything in the backpack. On December 30th, Mary seeks another restraining order against Nathan and writes in her petition, quote, "He has already taken steps to prepare to murder me. He will attempt this before the lease is up at the end of February." On January 6th, 2025, an officer goes to Nathan's apartment to execute the restraining order. So anyways, the person, you got your pen and everything ready to go. My goodness, you've done this before. Once it was enough, but here we are again. All right. So a person named Mary, same last name as you, district court, got a temporary restraining order. Oh, so it's the same. Oh, yeah. Okay. Again with the restraining order, same as the last restraining order, like that. Okay. Yeah. So you already know that's going to go real quick with you. You get that nailed in. No guns, ammunitions, permits, none of that. Do you have any children? Yeah. She kidnapped her the first time and then followed false TV and then had to drop it because she couldn't her deposition. She purged herself, but they didn't do to her. So, oh my goodness. So another one. Okay. Mental health issues. I'm sorry to hear that. Okay. I mean, I know you whatever. I just had to go over it. Okay. That's it. So, just to make sure you attend the hearing. Okay. That's it. Okay. Okay. Oh, cool. All right. Thanks so much. All right. You don't need to sign or nothing. Okay. All right. Well, best of luck. Okay, sir. Thank you. On January 10th, 2025, Mary makes what would be her final phone call to police. She calls to check on whether they're going to follow up on the tracker she found on her car or the fact that she believed Nathan broke in her house through an upstairs window. Both violations of the court's no harmful contact order. Good afternoon. My name is Mary Jingles. I was just calling to check on the status of a few open cases, or at least I think they're open. Can I do that? Okay. Is this in reference to your husband coming onto your property while you're having a restraining order? Well, so two things. One is that I have a case number on. That was in October. Are you requesting for officers to call you or meet with you in person for an update? A phone call is fine. But then also, can I check the status on the other one with the entering the home? You still just because I want to know because they said they may be back and I don't know if there are any charges that could be associated with that. But I would like to know. Okay. I went ahead and placed a call in for service I referenced in both cases. It's unclear if police ever followed up with Mary Jingles, but we know between February 2024 and January 2025, Mary called the Broward Sheriff's office 14 times about Nathan's behavior. Even Nathan's colleagues are growing concerned about him. He's got a good-paying job as an IT defense contractor, but his coworkers say Nathan is taking a lot of time off from work to deal with his divorce, and the bosses aren't happy. And they think Nathan was aware he was probably about to get fired. While they're just concerned about Nathan, Mary is downright scared. She starts telling her friends that one day Nathan is going to kill her, and they're going to be doing interviews with the news about how Mary knew it was going to happen. She started carrying a gun in her purse. She also starts staying up late at night, keeping watch over her driveway and her house, making sure Nathan doesn't show up. She decides to enlist the help of her father, David Ponzer. Ponzer agrees to stay at Mary's house to help protect her and his granddaughter. On February 16th, 2025, just as Mary Jingles predicted before the end of their lease in February, all hell broke loose. According to investigators, at 5:40 a.m., Nathan arrives to the neighborhood on this scooter. He locks it up and then waits for about 20 minutes outside Mary's home. Around 6 a.m., Ponzer is sitting on Mary's back patio having his morning cigarette and a cup of coffee when, according to police, Nathan shoots him in the head. The first 911 call comes from a neighbor, comes in around 6:01 a.m. There's gunshots moved on the next street. Oh my God. Boom, 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 boom. And I heard it several more times. How many times was you saying? I probably heard it like 4 rounds less than a minute ago. Mary and Nathan's 4-year-old daughter is sitting just inside the house on the couch watching the entire thing unfold. Investigators say that an armed Nathan then goes into the house looking for Mary. He finds her. They struggle inside the house. Mary runs outside. Police say Nathan tases her and drags her back inside the house. Mary is able to escape and runs outside again. Surveillance footage shows Mary running to find help. Nathan, investigators say, is close behind with a pistol in his left hand and then running, screaming, their barefoot 4-year-old daughter pleading for her father to stop. Mary is banging on her neighbors' doors. Neighbors are calling 911, reporting hearing gunshots and a woman screaming for help. Do you see anybody outside shooting or guns? I haven't seen anything on my eyes, but I'm almost certain that I heard screaming and it's like a popping noise. It could have been shooting. We are now receiving a second complaint that woman is screaming and possibly gunshots as well. Finally, a door opens. It's to her neighbor Andrew Farron's house. Andrew's relative lets her in. Mary bolts up the stairs seeking shelter and ends up in Farron's bedroom. He's fast asleep in bed. Prosecutors say Nathan Jingles immediately starts shooting, blasting at least 10 bullets. He shoots Andrew in the neck and then Mary several times in the head, killing both of them, all in front of their little 4-year-old girl. Police say Nathan then walked around the neighborhood with his daughter running behind him. Officers with the Broward Sheriff's office, even after receiving reports of gunfire, do not rush to the scene. Instead, they stage together just outside the neighborhood, which is in direct violation of the department's training and policy. Investigators say Nathan then kidnapped his child, put her in his car, and drove away. Police put out an Amber Alert. Initially, Mary is listed as missing as well because police don't know where she is. They bring in a canine, which tracks Mary's scent to Andrew Farron's front door. Officers enter and find Mary and Andrew shot to death. Now the hunt is really on for Nathan Jingles. They ping Nathan's phone. It's coming from a nearby apartment building. Police race there, locate the apartment, and break through the front door. Nathan's phone is on the kitchen counter. The apartment eerily is empty. No furniture, nothing in the refrigerator or the cabinets. But what they do find is chilling, bags packed, camping equipment, little girl's clothes and shoes, and a ton of cash. They also find a calendar, which seems to count down the days to February 16th, the day of the murders. Police start looking for Nathan's silver BMW, and within hours they find it in a local Walmart parking lot. They wait for Nathan to come out of the store, and then they pounce. Hey, I got hands. 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 Hey, get cuffs. Get cuffs. Don't move. You get shot. Police find Mary and Nathan's daughter in the car. Thankfully, she isn't harmed. Officers on scene at that point still don't know where Mary is. According to police records, they asked the little girl, "Where is your mommy?" She responds, "Daddy killed mommy. Mommy is laying in blood." She later tells investigators that her father told her she would never see her mother or grandfather again, and they were going to visit her cousin in Texas. While Nathan is on his way to the police precinct, detectives are processing the bloody crime scene spread out over the neighborhood. They're also looking for evidence, mainly discarded weapons. They use drones to survey the shallow lakes in the neighborhood. Divers are called in to search. They use metal detectors and locate 2 sets of handcuffs. They also find a gun holster. Then they find a handgun with the silencer still attached about 7 foot down in one of the lakes. Nathan is brought to the precinct for questioning. So basically, we want to talk about what's going on this morning. We want to hear your side of the story. And basically you explain, your thought process and what happened. We're not here to judge. We just were only seeing one side, and we want to hear from you. It's basically it. Yeah. So, like she explained, you've been respectful. I hope I've been respectful. So, we're having a conversation. That's what we're going to do. So we're here to ask questions, but we also going to answer questions if you have them as well. Correct. So we're hoping for just an open dialogue. But before we could do that, you were here in cuffs. So before we can talk and have that conversation, we got to read your Miranda rights. Have you ever been read those before? No. In knowing and understanding your rights, are you willing to speak to us without an attorney present? I'd like to request an attorney. Okay, very good. That's fine. Officers return hours later to take a DNA swab from him. Nathan Jingles is charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder, as well as child abuse and kidnapping. He has pleaded not guilty to all charges. Police begin to dig deeper into Nathan's life. They find a storage unit filled with guns. They also learned that Nathan wasn't living at this apartment at all. He was staying in a hotel. Simultaneously, there's a whole other investigation happening which has nothing to do with Nathan Jingles. It's the Broward Sheriff's Office investigating itself for its failure to address Mary Jingles' repeated calls for help in the year leading up to her murder. Sheriff Gregory Toney had some choice words for his department just 3 days after the murders. This is just a matter of what I've seen of piss poor performance, complacency. We fell short of RESP a response in terms of how some of patrol personnel had documented certain facts related to calls going back to December. It's clear that some of the investigative practices conducted by detectives was also a shortfall. There will be people that will lose their job over this. The sheriff initially suspends 7 deputies and then takes a closer look at what happened that day. Why did his officers stage a meeting place just outside the neighborhood instead of rushing in to help as they're trained and required to do? It's an issue that has haunted the department for years. During the Marjorie Stman Douglas High School mass shooting in Parkland, Florida in 2018, deputies with the Broward Sheriff's Office stalled before entering the building. 19-year-old Nicholas Cruz killed 17 people and injured 17 others. Several deputies were fired for neglect of duty. One of them, Scott Peterson, faced criminal charges, including child neglect for not running into the building. According to the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, the agency tasked to investigate Peterson's actions. Peterson's inaction that day cost people their lives. A jury later acquitted Peterson on all criminal charges, but he, as well as the Broward Sheriff's Office, is still facing civil action from the victims' families for their response that day. The year prior, in 2017, the department was heavily criticized for not coordinating and communicating effectively after a mass shooting at the Fort Lauderdale Hollywood International Airport, which left 5 dead. After those 2 incidents, the Broward Sheriff's Office lost its accreditation. The department refined its policies, improved and increased its training, and yet some officers still failed to respond correctly to the scene in Tamarack in 2024. The sheriff wasn't shy about calling out his officers' missteps in a play-by-play press conference held after the department's own 7-month-long internal affairs investigation. But as you can see, the couple units bypassed the residency and took a staging position up per the sergeant's instruction and decided to rally out there. That's not within policy. That's not within procedures. That's not what we trained. They should have went straight to the house. At this point in time, what you're going to see in the upper right screen is video footage of Sergeant Allen arriving on scene, turning his lights off, at which point both the suspect and the daughter passes his vehicle. It's even called in. Nathan and his daughter walking around the neighborhood. Nathan in all black and his daughter without any shoes on. A strange sight at 6 o'clock in the morning. Yet no officer stops them. They're here at the top on this circle. So, I don't know if this really did it at this time. Just finally got a lot of walking around, and she had a machine on. The sheriff explains that the first officer to arrive on scene was an officer who was not even from Tamarack. We have a Deputy K-9 officer who is coming from outside of the city who heard this call. I believe he was in Deerfield Beach, and he ran code 3 across 4 different cities to arrive on this scene. And that is him running lead or point as he passed the sergeant, a witch with an additional backup unit who recognized this isn't a staging incident. This is something where no one should be sitting around. You can hear the frustration in the K-9 officer's voice, as well as his colleague out there not understanding why these deputies are standing around and not pushing the contact. And he's 100% right. I can train you. I can supply you. I can give you all the tools to be successful. What I can't coach is courage and effort. And if you're going to sign up for this profession, you better make sure you have both of those first or don't join this profession. The department fired 8 deputies and disciplined 21 others for the way they handled Mary's case and the murders that day. The union representing the terminated deputies is fighting to get their jobs back with back pay. Meanwhile, Nathan Jingles remains in jail. We obtained some of his many jail calls. He appears to be speaking with a friend or family member in Texas. Initially, Nathan appears to be pretty calm and unbothered, more annoyed by the charges he's facing. Still in isolation. I was just playing the suicide watch. So yeah, hopefully next week should be out of the isolation. Get blessed with media people and stuff. No, I got an email this morning which was weird because it was to my Hotmail, which I never used, and it was someone from the Miami Herald was like, "Oh, you're on the witness list." And I was like, "What?" I was like, "Witness list?" I'm like, I was in Texas, man. I didn't witness anything. Oh yeah, basically, ignore any all. Yeah, no, I don't plan on talking to anybody. Yeah, good plan. But as time goes on, Nathan's tone changes. Criminals set me up and criminals trying to crucify me and try to traffic my daughter. So good time. I'm on fighting every charge is all, but whatever. He believes that everyone is against him, including his own attorneys. I'll be talking to my attorneys again on Tuesday, but basically met conflict of interest. They basically ignored everything. They're basically working with the prosecutor against me. So, that's an issue we'll be addressing next week. Nathan's attorneys recently asked a judge to be removed from his case, citing irreconcilable differences to an extreme degree. Nathan was essentially accusing his attorneys of being in cahoots with prosecutors. The judge granted the request and appointed a new attorney. We reached out to that attorney, but didn't hear back. New York-based criminal defense attorney James Pasquarella, who is not involved in this case, says whoever represents Nathan Jingles is going to face an uphill battle. I think that the evidence in this case is overwhelming from what I see. You have witnesses who see him running and chasing. You have video surveillance that starts to really build a case against them. You have a lot of evidence that leads to premeditation. You have the threats ahead of time. You have a bag that was found that had zip ties and things like that in it. You have him chasing them down. Those all show premeditation because premeditation doesn't have to be some elaborate scheme. Premeditation can be within moments before you decide to do it. But I do think there's the possibility of other defenses, such as not responsible by reason of insanity. Florida has a pretty strict standard. Their standard is beyond extreme emotional distress and things of that nature. You have to show real mental illness, schizophrenia, delusion, things like that. How does a plea deal play into this? A plea deal is a possibility, and the fact that a defendant may want to avoid the death penalty may be a reason, an incentive to take some sort of a plea. As of this recording, the death penalty is still on the table for Nathan Jingles. While the Tamarack community continues to mourn the incredible loss and trauma that happened here, some legislators are taking action. Florida Representative Robin Bartleman recently introduced a bill that would have forced police to seize Nathan Jingles' guns when they went to tell him only a few weeks before the shooting that Mary was filing a restraining order against him. The bill says if someone like Nathan Jingles has an injunction, a protective order filed against them, police are now forced to seize their weapons. They can't just remind people of the policy. Andrew Farron's family is supporting the bill. This bill says no more loopholes and no more taking chances with the lives of our survivors. And then in March 2026, the Florida House of Representatives unanimously passed a bill that would force people who violate a protective order to be on GPS monitoring. It means that when Nathan had allegedly broken into Mary's house through an upstairs window and on a separate occasion allegedly placed a tracker on her car, her complaints to police could have resulted in police putting Nathan on a GPS monitor. Florida Representative Deborah Tendrich, a domestic violence survivor herself, is behind the bill. And this year, members, I will reflect on how my survivor story led me to bring forward a bill designed to help save lives across our state for those who are walking in the same shoes that I once wore. Representative Bartleman spoke during the House vote and reiterated not only her support for the bill, but Andrew Farron's family's support for it as well. Andrew's uncle, George David, came to me and said, "Why didn't that animal have a GPS monitoring? Why aren't we doing something?" And then I read your bill and I said, guess what? Somebody's already taking care of this. Because this was a repeat offender. This is someone who should have had his guns taken away, and if he was on a GPS monitor, it would have made a difference. So on behalf of that family, this was something very important to them to change this. Thank you, and I totally support this amendment. The bill is heading to the Florida Senate. Both pieces of legislation aim to make sure that what happened to Mary Jingles, David Ponder, and Andrew Farron never happens again. It never should have happened in the first place. For Law and Crime Investigates, I'm Kristen Thorne. Here is the extension with the headline removed. And yet, for the families left behind, no bill, no policy reform, no press conference will ever fully fill the void that was carved out on that cold February morning in Tamarack. 3 people woke up that day and did not survive it. A grandfather who simply wanted to protect his daughter and granddaughter. A neighbor who opened his door when no one else did. And a young mother who saw it all coming and spent an entire year screaming into a void, begging anyone who would listen to help her. David Ponzer was 60 years old. Friends described him as the kind of man who didn't think twice before showing up. When Mary called him and told him she was scared, that she needed someone with her at the house, David didn't hesitate. He drove to Tamarack, moved into her spare room, and took on the quiet, unglamorous work of watching over his daughter and granddaughter. He was sitting on the back patio at 6 in the morning with a cigarette and a cup of coffee, doing what fathers do, keeping watch when Nathan Jingles shot him in the head. People who knew David say he was funny, that he could light up a room, that he adored his granddaughter in that particular way grandfathers do, the kind of love that is patient and steady and asks for nothing in return. He had no idea, when he agreed to stay with Mary, that he was walking into a trap that had been carefully laid over weeks and months. Andrew Farron was a neighbor. That's what makes his death particularly devastating to those who knew him. He had no involvement in the custody dispute, no knowledge of the threats, no stake in the outcome. He was simply a man asleep in his own bed when a woman in desperate need of safety knocked on his door, and someone in his household let her in. That act of basic human decency, opening a door, cost Andrew his life. He was shot in the neck, and then Mary was shot several times in the head. Both of them died in Andrew's bedroom, while a 4-year-old girl watched from somewhere close by. Andrew's family has chosen not to retreat into silence. Instead, they have channeled their grief into advocacy, standing behind the legislation now moving through the Florida legislature, showing up at hearings, speaking to reporters, demanding that Andrew's death mean something beyond the tragedy of it. His uncle, George David, has become one of the most vocal supporters of the GPS monitoring bill, and his presence at the Florida House vote was a reminder that behind every piece of legislation, there is a family that paid the price for its absence. Mary Jingles was 33 years old. She was a captain in the United States Army. She was a mother. She was, by every account, a woman who tried to do everything right. She filed a restraining order. She called police 14 times over the course of a year. She found the tracker on her car and reported it. She found a backpack full of zip ties and garbage bags and gloves and reported it. She sought a second restraining order just weeks before her death and wrote plainly in her petition that Nathan had already taken steps to prepare to murder her. She told her friends she was going to be killed. She told them they'd one day be doing interviews about how they knew. She was right about all of it, and it didn't save her. There is one person whose name has, rightly, been kept out of the press as much as possible. Mary and Nathan's daughter, who was 4 years old on February 16th, 2025. She was sitting on the couch watching television when her grandfather was shot on the back patio. She chased her father barefoot through the neighborhood, screaming as he pursued her mother. She was in the car when Nathan was arrested in the Walmart parking lot. When officers asked her where her mommy was, she told them her daddy had killed her mommy and that mommy was laying in blood. She is now without both of her parents. Nathan Jingles remains in jail, awaiting trial. Mary Jingles is dead. The child is believed to be in the care of family members, though authorities have not released details out of concern for her privacy and safety. What she witnessed that morning, what she will carry with her for the rest of her life, is a weight no child should ever be asked to bear. Trauma researchers who work with children who have witnessed domestic violence homicides say that the path forward for survivors like her is long and requires sustained, specialized care. The hope is that she receives it. The fear, for those who have followed this case closely, is that the systems that failed her mother will find new ways to fail her too. Sheriff Gregory Toney was blunt in the days following the murders. He called it piss-poor performance. He talked about complacency. He promised consequences. And to a degree, he delivered them. 8 deputies were fired. 21 others were disciplined. A 7-month internal affairs investigation was conducted and made public, which is itself unusual. Most departments bury their failures. Broward County put a camera on theirs. But context matters here. This was not the first time the Broward Sheriff's Office found itself at the center of a catastrophic failure to protect the public. In February 2018, a 19-year-old gunman walked into Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland and opened fire. By the time it was over, 17 students and staff were dead. The school resource officer assigned to the building, Scott Peterson, remained outside during the shooting. He was fired. He was criminally charged. And though a jury ultimately acquitted him on all counts, the civil litigation from that day continues to wind its way through the courts. A year before Parkland, in 2017, the department was criticized for its coordination failures during a mass shooting at Fort Lauderdale-Hollywood International Airport. 5 people died. The department lost its accreditation. It spent years rebuilding its policies, overhauling its training, recertifying its procedures. And then, in February 2025, officers staged outside a neighborhood in Tamarack instead of going in. They watched a man and a barefoot 4-year-old girl walk through the streets and didn't stop them. The K-9 officer who drove from Deerfield Beach, 4 cities away, had to physically pass his own sergeant to get to the scene. The first officer to show appropriate urgency was one who had no jurisdictional obligation to be there at all. The union representing the fired deputies has contested the terminations. They argue, as unions often do in these situations, that the officers followed the instructions of their sergeant, that the failures were organizational rather than individual. That argument will be tested in arbitration and possibly in court. The sheriff, for his part, has remained firm. In a statement released after the union announced its intention to fight the terminations, his office reiterated that the conduct on February 16th was incompatible with the standards the department demands and the public deserves. Whether those 8 firings represent genuine accountability or institutional scapegoating is a question that domestic violence advocates and law enforcement watchdog organizations are continuing to examine. What is less contested is the broader pattern. In the year leading up to her death, Mary Jingles called the Broward Sheriff's Office 14 times. She documented the tracker. She documented the break-in. She documented the backpack. She had a court order in place that Nathan was allegedly violating repeatedly. And the machinery of law enforcement despite all of it, did not move with sufficient urgency to protect her. Two bills are now working their way through the Florida legislature in direct response to what happened to Mary Jingles and to Andrew Farron and to David Ponzer. The first, introduced by Representative Robin Bartleman, targets a specific gap in existing law. When police went to Nathan Jingles' home in early 2025 to serve him with Mary's second restraining order, they were not required by law to seize his weapons at that moment. They could remind him of the prohibition on gun ownership while subject to an injunction, but the physical seizure was not mandatory. Bartleman's bill changes that. It would require law enforcement officers to seize firearms at the point of service when an injunction or protective order is filed. No more leaving a person who has been identified as a threat in possession of the tools most likely to carry out that threat. The second bill, championed by Representative Deborah Tendrich, addresses the question of monitoring. Under the bill, which the Florida House of Representatives passed unanimously in March 2026, anyone who violates a protective order would be placed on GPS monitoring. The logic is straightforward. Nathan Jingles allegedly broke into Mary's home through an upstairs window. He allegedly placed a tracker on Mary's car. Mary reported both incidents to police. Under the proposed law, those violations could have triggered GPS monitoring of Nathan himself, meaning that every time he came near Mary's home, every time he drove past her street, every time he deviated from the boundaries the court had set, there would be a record of it, possibly an alert. Would have saved Mary's life? There's no way to know for certain. But as Representative Bartleman argued on the House floor, it would have changed the calculus. A man who knows he is being monitored by GPS at all times is a man who faces a much higher risk of immediate detection and arrest if he violates a court order. It introduces friction into the process of escalating violence. It gives law enforcement something actionable in real time rather than after the fact. Both bills now head to the Florida Senate. Advocacy groups, including those working in domestic violence prevention and survivor support, are watching the Senate's deliberations closely. Historically, bills like these face pushback on grounds of civil liberties, resource allocation, and the practical question of who monitors the monitors. Proponents argue that these concerns, while legitimate, have to be weighed against the documented reality that the current system failed Mary Jingles in the most irreversible way possible. Domestic violence researchers and legal advocates who have followed this case say it illustrates with painful clarity the gap that exists between the protections the law promises and the protections it actually delivers in practice. A restraining order is a piece of paper. That phrase has become something of a dark cliche in conversations about intimate partner violence, but it endures because it is true. The order itself carries no physical force. It does not prevent a person from approaching. It does not disarm them. It does not monitor their movements. It only creates a legal consequence for behavior that has already occurred, and that consequence depends entirely on law enforcement choosing to enforce it. In Mary Jingles' case, the documentation was extraordinary. She was meticulous. She kept records. She called police every time something happened. She found the tracker, photographed the financial records that pointed to Nathan as its source, notified her attorney, and called the sheriff's office. She found a backpack, called police, and waited for them to come and document it. She filed a second restraining order weeks before her death and wrote explicitly that Nathan had already taken steps to prepare to murder her. She did, by every measure, everything a person is supposed to do. And still, none of it was enough. Advocates say this is not uncommon. Women in particular who are fleeing abusive partners often describe an experience of institutional exhaustion, of calling police so many times that the calls begin to feel routine to the officers receiving them, of being advised, as Mary was, to simply get a new restraining order, of watching their abuser face no meaningful consequence for behavior that is, on its face, a violation of a court order. The result is a slow erosion of faith in the system, even as the danger continues to escalate. Nathan Jingles remains in a Broward County jail cell. He has pleaded not guilty to 3 counts of first-degree murder, child abuse, and kidnapping. His attorneys, after citing irreconcilable differences to an extreme degree and being removed from the case at their own request, have been replaced by a court-appointed public defender. The death penalty remains on the table. Legal analysts watching the case say the evidence against Nathan is substantial. The surveillance footage alone traces a damning arc. The scooter arriving in the neighborhood, the 20-minute wait outside Mary's home, the pursuit through the streets, the entry into Andrew Farron's house, the shooting. Add to that the backpack, the calendar counting down to February 16th, the hotel room with packed bags and camping equipment and cash, the storage unit full of guns, the tracker on Mary's car, the silenced weapon found at the bottom of a lake. The case for premeditation, analysts say, is not a difficult one to make. Whether Nathan Jingles will ultimately accept a plea deal to avoid the death penalty is a question only he and his attorney can answer. His jail call suggests a man who does not believe the system will or should convict him, who believes he is being framed, who has accused his own lawyers of working against him. That posture may make a negotiated resolution difficult. It may also, his legal team will have to consider, make him a challenging client to represent at trial. For the Tamarack community, the trial, whenever it comes, will bring its own particular form of reckoning. Neighbors who heard the gunshots, who called 911, who saw Mary running barefoot through the street, will have to sit with those memories again. The 4-year-old girl who survived that morning will grow up in the long shadow of it. And the question that Mary Jingles asked implicitly in 14 phone calls over the course of a year, the question of whether the system will protect you when you need it most, remains for countless women across this country unanswered. She predicted her own murder. She documented it. She reported it. She ran from it, and she couldn't outrun it. The least we can do, those who watched and are watching, is make sure that her story does not become simply another tragedy filed away and forgotten. The bills moving through the Florida legislature are a start. They are not an ending.